The night was cruel. The wind howled across the frozen valley like a beast searching for prey. Snow covered the land in endless white, and the stars above shone like cold knives in the sky. In the middle of this emptiness, a mother stumbled forward. Her skin was pale blue, her breath weak, and in her arms she carried a small child. The child was wrapped in rags, her eyes half closed, her lips trembling. The mother held her tighter, whispering softly, "Stay with me, my little star. Stay awake." But the cold did not care about love. The cold bit their skin, the cold pulled their strength away. The mother knew she could not last until morning. She looked at the horizon, praying for a miracle, and then she saw fire. In the distance, on the edge of the valley, small dots of light flickered. The mother's heart jumped. Fire meant people. Fire meant warmth. Fire meant hope. She gathered the last of her strength and walked toward the lights. Her legs were weak, her body heavy, but she kept moving, whispering to the child, "Just a little more. Just one night. We only need one night." As she drew closer, the fire grew brighter. She saw strange shapes, tense metal structures, and figures moving near the flames. They were not her people. Their forms were tall, their clothes heavy, their movements strong. She froze. Humans. The stories of humans filled her mind. Traders of steel, hunters of worlds, cruel and greedy, they said. They took what they wanted and gave nothing back. No mercy. No kindness. Fear shook her heart, but the child in her arms whimpered, too weak to cry. The mother looked at her daughter's face and knew she had no choice. She stepped forward. The humans noticed her. One shouted something in a strange tongue. Weapons were lifted, firelight glinted on metal. She raised her free hand and fell to her knees in the snow. "Please," she cried in broken words. "One night. Just one night with me. Take my daughter. For a blanket, please." The camp grew silent. The humans stared at her, confusion in their eyes. She lowered her head, ashamed, her tears freezing on her face. For a long moment, no one moved. Then one man stepped forward. He wore a thick coat of brown fur. His face was rough, his beard heavy, but his eyes burned with something she could not understand. He looked at her, then at the child, and then at the blanket on his shoulder. Slowly, he removed it. The mother braced herself. This was the trade. This was the cost. She was ready to give her daughter away if it meant the child could live another day. But the man did not take the child from her arms. Instead, he knelt down. His large hands reached out, not to grab, but to lift gently. He picked up both mother and daughter together as if they were not burdens, but treasures. The mother gasped, shocked, but too weak to resist. The man carried them toward the fire. Other humans whispered, some frowning, some shaking their heads. But the man ignored them. Closer to the fire, warmth touched her frozen skin. The smell of cooked food filled her nose. She had not eaten in days. Her daughter stirred, eyes half open, reaching for the glow of the flames. The man placed them near the fire and covered them with the blanket. He tore a piece of bread and gave it to the child. The little girl's tiny hands took it, and she ate with slow, hungry bites. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She could not understand. Why would a human give without taking? Why would a human save her? When all her life she was told they were monsters. The man did not speak her language, but his actions were louder than words. He poured warm water into a cup and pressed it into her hands. His eyes told her one thing: you are safe. But deep inside, the mother's fear did not vanish. Nothing was free. Nothing came without a price. Humans always wanted something. If not now, then later. She looked at her daughter wrapped in the human's blanket, breathing easier now, cheeks slowly warming. For the first time, the child smiled faintly. The mother trembled. She whispered to herself, "What will he take from us? What do humans want?" Around them, other humans watched carefully. Some seemed angry, some curious, but none stopped the man. He stayed by the fire, arms crossed, silent. The night outside roared with cold wind, but inside the campfire circle, warmth spread. The mother could not sleep. She held her daughter close, staring at the humans with both fear and wonder. And in the back of her mind, one question grew louder and louder. The flames of the campfire danced high, crackling against the frozen night. Sparks flew into the sky like tiny stars, chasing away the darkness. The alien mother sat close, clutching her daughter. The blanket still covered them both, warm against their frozen skin. The human who had carried them remained nearby. His broad shoulders blocked the wind, his silent, watchful eyes fixed on the mother and child as if guarding them from the cold itself. The mother's heart raced. She was safe for now, but fear pressed hard inside her chest. Humans never gave without reason. This kindness was a trap, she told herself. The price would come later. Her daughter, however, felt no such fear. The little girl leaned closer to the fire, her cheeks pink now, her eyes wide. She held the bread the human had given and nibbled with quiet joy. For the first time in many nights, she smiled. The mother whispered, "Eat slowly, little star." But her voice shook. She could not stop her hands from trembling. Around the fire, other humans gathered. Some sat on logs, some stood with arms crossed. Their voices were low but tense. The mother could not understand their language, but she could feel their suspicion. Their eyes cut through her like blades. One man pointed at her with anger. Another shook his head, his mouth forming harsh words. Their voices grew louder, like thunder rolling before a storm. The alien mother pulled her daughter closer. She wanted to run, but her body was too weak, and the cold outside was death. Then the human who had saved them spoke. His voice was deep, steady, but firm. He pointed to the child, then to the fire. His words carried a power she could not understand, but she knew his meaning. They are not enemies. They are cold, just cold. The other humans fell quiet for a moment, though doubt still burned in their faces. The rescuer knelt again and offered the mother a cup of hot broth. She hesitated. What if it was poisoned? What if it was a trick? Yet her daughter's tiny hand reached for the cup. The mother let her drink first. Warmth spread into the child's body. Her eyes brightened, her lips moved into a small laugh. The sound cut through the camp like music. Even the suspicious humans turned to look. The rescuer smiled faintly. Then he broke another piece of bread and handed it to the mother. Slowly, carefully, she took it. The taste of warm bread filled her mouth. Tears stung her eyes. For so many days she had eaten only roots and ice. Now food melted on her tongue like a dream. Still, she could not trust. She whispered in her own language, "Why? Why are you doing this? What do you want?" Of course, the human did not answer. But his eyes carried no hunger, no cruelty. Only something she had never seen in her life from outsiders, something like... Curse. The child leaned against her, sleepy from warmth and food. She whispered, "Mother. Maybe they are angels." The mother froze. Angels? No, humans were not angels. They were monsters, conquerors, traitors of life. She wanted to say this aloud, but her voice failed. The fire crackled and a quiet fell over the camp. The humans began to relax, though many still watched carefully. The rescuer sat down near the fire, sharpening a knife. His movements were calm, as if protecting them was now his duty. The mother studied his face. Scars lined his jaw, proof of battles fought. His hands were rough, hands that could kill easily. Yet tonight those same hands had carried her and her child to safety. Why? The question burned inside her like the fire itself. She tried to stay awake, but exhaustion pulled her down. Her head lowered, her eyes closed. Still, fear whispered in her mind. When I wake, what will they take from me? Hours passed. The fire never died. The human kept feeding it, placing wood into the flames, glancing often at the mother and child. When she opened her eyes again, she saw something that shook her heart. Another human had approached the child while she slept, trying to pull the blanket away. Perhaps he wanted it back. Perhaps he wanted to test if the alien girl deserved it. But before the man could touch the child, the rescuer's hand shot out, gripping his arm like iron. Their eyes met, firelight reflecting in them. The rescuer spoke one word, low and sharp. The other man pulled away, angered but silent. The mother saw this, and her fear shifted. The rescuer was not only protecting her from the cold, he was protecting her from his own kind. The thought left her breathless. The night stretched on, and outside the camp, the storm howled. Snow buried the valley deeper, hiding every path. But inside the circle of fire there was warmth. There was food. There was life. The mother could no longer fight sleep. She curled close to her daughter, the blanket wrapping them both. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was not fear but confusion. What kind of monster gives warmth? As the firelight flickered on their faces, the human stood watch. Silent, patient, guarding them as if they were his own blood, and in the shadows beyond the camp, something moved. Eyes watched. Steps pressed into snow. Danger was close, but the mother did not yet know, for now, there was only the fire, only the warmth, only the question that burned brighter than the flames themselves. What price would the human ask when the night was over? The storm outside raged through the night, but inside the human camp, the fire glowed bright and steady. Snow slammed against the tents, wind howled like a dying beast, but the flames held strong. Around it, men and women sat with hard faces, their eyes never leaving the alien mother and her child. The mother held her daughter close, her mind restless. The blanket warmed her body, but fear froze her heart. These humans were strange. They gave food without trade. They gave fire without demand. Why? No kindness came without cost. Her daughter, small and fragile, leaned against her side. The girl's eyes sparkled as she watched the firelight dance. She whispered, "Mother, I feel safe." The mother did not answer. Safe? No. Safety with humans was an illusion. She kissed her child's forehead and prayed silently, "Let this night pass without chains." The human who had saved them still sat near, sharpening his knife with slow, steady strokes. Sparks jumped from the blade with every pull. His face was hard, unreadable, but his eyes kept drifting toward the child. Not with hunger, not with cruelty, but with something else. The mother could not name it. Then the silence broke. Another human, tall and broad, rose to his feet. He pointed at the mother and began to speak in his rough voice. The language was strange, heavy, but his anger was clear. His hands moved sharply, his finger stabbing the air as if accusing her of a crime. The rescuer responded, calm but firm. He spoke in the same tongue, his voice deep and steady. The two argued, words clashing like blades. The mother did not understand, but she felt their meaning. One saw her as a danger, the other saw her as something else. At last, the tall man spat into the fire and walked away, muttering. The others stayed silent, eyes moving between the rescuer and the mother. Tension filled the camp like smoke. The child, unaware, touched the firelight with her small hands as if trying to catch it. A soft laugh escaped her lips. For the first time, the camp changed. Humans looked at her differently. Not as an enemy, not as a burden, but as something innocent. The rescuer smiled faintly and spoke a few words. Another human chuckled. Soon voices rose, not in anger, but in stories. The mother listened, confused. They spoke to each other, their faces softer now, their voices lower. One man pointed to the stars above and told a tale. His hands moved like waves, his voice carried emotion. Others laughed, others sighed. The rescuer, too, spoke. His eyes flicked toward the mother as he talked, his voice strong, his hands showing shapes in the air. The others nodded, some smiled. The mother leaned forward, trying to understand. She caught words she did not know, but she felt the meaning. They were not arguing now. They were remembering. They were telling each other about another place, another world. The girl tugged her mother's sleeve. "What are they saying?" The mother whispered, "I do not know," but her heart ached. Their faces were not cruel now. Their eyes shone with longing. Whatever their stories were, they carried pain and hope together. The rescuer looked at the little girl. His hand moved slowly, drawing a circle in the air, then pointing to the stars. He spoke one word, clearly. "Earth." The girl tilted her head. "Earth?" The rescuer nodded. He touched his chest. "Human." Then he touched the girl's chest gently, not with force but care. "Child." The mother stiffened, ready to snatch her daughter away. But the girl giggled. "Earth," she repeated. The humans laughed softly. For a brief moment the fire felt like home, but the mother could not rest. Her ears caught something else, the sound of wind breaking differently. A step too heavy for snow alone. She turned her head sharply. Beyond the circle of fire, in the dark storm, shadows moved. She froze. Her heart stopped. She knew that shape. She knew those steps, raiders, her people's enemies, the ones who had chased her through the valley. They had found her trail. They were here. The fire's warmth turned to ice in her veins. She pulled her daughter close, whispering, "Stay quiet, little star. Do not move." The rescuer noticed her fear. His knife paused. His eyes narrowed, following her gaze into the storm. He saw nothing yet, but his body tensed. He trusted her fear. The other humans laughed, still lost in their stories, not aware of the danger lurking just beyond the light. The mother's breath shook. She had seen death before, but now it stood outside the fire. If the raiders attacked, the humans would not only die, they would die because of her. The rescuer rose to his feet, silent. He looked into the storm again, then back at her. His eyes met hers. She understood the unspoken question. "What is it?" She whispered in her own tongue, her voice breaking. They are coming. They are here. He could not understand her words, but he understood her fear. The night was no longer safe. The fire was no longer enough. The child pressed closer to her mother. The humans, still unaware, told their stories. The rescuer, however, stepped into the snow, knife in hand, his breath rising like smoke, and in the distance, glowing eyes watched from the dark. The warmth of the fire could not protect them from what was coming. The mother's heart screamed with guilt.
She had asked for one night.
Just one night, but that night had brought death to the humans who saved her. The fire crackled in the center of the camp, but outside the circle of light, darkness grew heavier. The alien mother's eyes stayed fixed on the storm. She knew what hid beyond the snow. Shadows that did not belong to the night, footsteps that belonged to hunters, raiders. Her daughter pressed close, clutching her sleeve. The child whispered, "Mother, why are you afraid?" The mother held her tighter. "Because the night is not empty." The human rescuer, standing near with knife in hand, studied her face. He did not know her words, but he saw her fear. His eyes hardened. Slowly he stepped away from the fire and looked into the swirling storm. Snow whipped against his coat. The wind screamed across the valley, but he stood tall, scanning the dark. The other humans still sat by the fire, telling their quiet stories, their laughter soft. But one by one they noticed the rescuer's silence. They followed his gaze, their own hands reaching for weapons. The air changed. No longer warm, no longer safe. It was the air of danger. Then came the sound. A crunch of snow, another and another. Too many steps, too close. The mother's heart pounded. She knew those steps. The raiders had found her trail. They had followed her through the storm, and now they had come for her and her daughter. Her lips trembled. "I brought death to them," she whispered. The firelight wavered as the wind pushed harder. The humans rose, weapons drawn, blades, spears, rifles. Their faces grew sharp, no longer relaxed, but ready. They stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a wall around the fire. The mother crouched low, pulling her daughter into her arms. The girl whimpered, but the mother pressed her hand over her lips. "Quiet, my star. Quiet." And then, the shadows stepped into the light. Figures cloaked in black fur, eyes glowing with hunger. Their weapons were crude but deadly. Axes, clubs, jagged blades. The raiders' leader, tall and scarred, grinned through sharp teeth. He pointed at the mother. His voice cut through the storm, rough and cruel. She understood his words. "Give us the woman and the child, and we will leave you alive." Her blood ran cold. She looked at the humans, her mouth opening to speak, to beg them to let her go, to tell them she was not worth their lives. But before she could, the rescuer stepped forward. He raised his knife, his voice like thunder. She did not understand the language, but she understood the meaning. "No." The raiders laughed, their cruel voices echoing through the storm. Then they charged. The camp exploded into chaos, snow flew under rushing feet, steel clashed with bone. Human rifles roared, fire spitting into the dark. A raider screamed, falling into the snow. Another leapt over the fire, only to be met by a blade through his chest. The mother shielded her daughter, pressing her close, her eyes wide with terror. She had seen battles before, but never like this. Humans did not fight as individuals. They fought as one. Every movement, every strike was not for themselves. It was for each other. The rescuer fought like a storm within the storm. His knife flashed, his fists struck. His boots crushed snow and bone alike. A raider swung a club at him, but he caught it, twisted, and drove his blade into the attacker's throat. Blood stained the snow black. The mother trembled. These were not the monsters she had been told about. These were warriors, and yet they fought not to take, not to enslave, not to conquer, but to protect. The raider leader roared, pushing through the fight, his eyes locked on the mother and child. He raised his jagged blade, running straight for them. The mother screamed, curling over her daughter. She closed her eyes, waiting for death, but it did not come. When she opened her eyes, she saw the rescuer standing before her, his arm raised, blood dripping from his sleeve. The raider's blade had cut him, but he did not fall. With a roar, the human drove his knife deep into the leader's chest. The raider stumbled back, eyes wide, before collapsing into the snow. The others hesitated. Their leader was gone. The humans pressed forward, shouting, striking, pushing them back into the storm. One by one, the raiders fled, swallowed by the night. Silence returned, broken only by heavy breathing and the crackle of fire. Snow fell again. soft and endless, covering the blood. The humans lowered their weapons. Some were wounded, some bleeding, but they were alive. The rescuer turned back to the mother and child. His face was pale, his arm bleeding, but his eyes burned with fire. He crouched before them, his voice low. He said something she could not understand, but his meaning was clear. You are safe. I will not let them take you. The mother's lips shook. She could not believe it. These humans had fought, had bled, had killed, not for food, not for trade, not for gain. They had fought for her and her daughter. Her daughter looked up at the rescuer with wide eyes and whispered, "He saved us again, Mother." "Are humans angels?" The mother could not answer. Her throat closed, her heart heavy. Outside the firelight, the storm swallowed the raiders' tracks. More danger would come. She knew it. But tonight she had seen something she never thought possible. Humans had chosen to protect. And that truth was more terrifying than the raiders themselves. The fire still burned in the center of the camp, but its light now fell on broken bodies and red-stained snow. The storm outside had calmed, yet silence hung heavier than the wind. The battle was over. The raiders had fled, but the scars of the fight remained. The alien mother sat frozen, holding her daughter. Her arms were tight around the child as if she feared the world might tear her away. The girl's eyes were wide, still glowing with the shock of what she had seen. All around, the humans tended to their wounded. Some bound their arms with cloth. Others leaned on each other for support. Faces were pale, breaths heavy, yet not one of them looked at her with blame. Not one pointed a finger and said, "This is your fault." But she knew it was. Her people's enemies had followed her trail, and death had come to the humans because she had entered their fire. Her heart trembled. I should have never asked for help. I should have died in the snow. The rescuer stood not far from her, his sleeve soaked with blood. The cut across his arm was deep, but he said nothing. He simply wrapped cloth around the wound with steady hands. No groan, no complaint. The mother watched him. This man had thrown himself into danger again and again, not to claim her, not to take her child, but to protect them. The image of him standing between her and the raider leader burned into her mind. Her chest tightened. She could not understand. The child shifted in her lap and whispered, "Mother, they fought for us. They could have let the raiders take us, but they didn't." The mother stroked her hair, her throat too tight to reply. One of the humans walked toward her now. A woman with strong eyes and hair tied back. She carried a small box. Kneeling, she opened it to reveal herbs, bandages, and bottles. She pointed to the mother's arm. The mother shook her head quickly, pulling her daughter closer. But the rescuer stepped forward, speaking softly in his strange tongue. His voice was low, calm. His hand gestured, "It is safe." The mother hesitated. Her people had always had humans poisoned with gifts, yet she looked at her daughter, whose cheeks were no longer frozen, whose small body no longer shook. The food and warmth had not killed her. Slowly, the mother nodded. The woman reached out gently, cleaning the scratches on her skin with a wet cloth. The sting made her flinch, but the touch was careful. She wrapped her arm with clean bandages, her face showing no anger, only focus. The mother whispered, "Why? Why do this?" The human woman, of course, did not understand. She only smiled faintly and pressed her hand over the mother's heart, then over her own. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She looked away quickly, ashamed to show weakness. The rescuer crouched before her next. He pointed at her, then at himself, then at the child. He spoke slowly, as if teaching a child. "Safe," he said. Then again louder, "Safe." The girl's lips curled into a smile. She repeated the word softly. "Safe." The mother felt her heart crack. Later, when the humans sat down to eat, they shared their food once again. Bowls of broth passed from hand to hand. Bread broken into pieces. The rescuer brought a bowl to the mother and her child. Setting it in front of them, she stared at it. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to prove she owed them nothing. But her daughter's hungry eyes betrayed her. With shaking hands, she lifted the bowl. She fed her daughter first, watching as joy spread across the girl's face. Then carefully she ate too. Warmth filled her stomach. Tears burned her eyes again. Around the fire, the humans spoke quietly, their faces tired but alive. One played with a small piece of wood, carving shapes. Another hummed a song, low and steady like a lullaby. The girl leaned against her mother, eyelids heavy. Her tiny voice whispered, "Mother, I want to stay. I want to stay with them forever. The words pierced her heart. Stay? No, that was impossible. Humans always demanded their price. And yet, she looked at the rescuer. His arm was bound now, blood still seeping through. He should have been resting. But instead, he kept watch again, eyes scanning the storm beyond the fire. Guarding. Always guarding. Why? The mother's chest ached. She wanted to ask him, to shout the question in his face. But she knew the answer would not come. Not yet. As the night deepened, she found herself whispering to the stars. What kind of creature gives blood without asking anything back? What kind of man protects strangers with his life? The firelight flickered, warming the wounded, calming the storm. For the first time in her life, she felt something strange toward humans. Not hatred. Not fear, something dangerous. Something she dared not name. Trust. But in the shadows of the valley, the night was not done. Far away, torches burned. More raiders gathered. The fight was not over, and soon she would learn that trust alone might not be enough to keep them all alive. The storm had passed, but silence felt heavier than before. Snow lay deep across the valley, burying blood and footprints alike. The campfire burned low, casting long shadows over tired faces. The humans sat in a circle, their wounds bound, their weapons close. The alien mother sat apart, her daughter asleep in her arms. The girl's breathing was soft and steady now, her tiny hand clutching the human's blanket as if it were her most precious treasure. The mother stroked her hair gently, but her own heart was restless. Danger was not gone. Raiders did not vanish so easily. If one group had found her trail, more would come. And this time they would not run. Her eyes lifted toward the mountains beyond the valley. She knew those peaks well. Steep cliffs, hidden passes, secret paths carved long ago by her people. A path only she knew could lead to safety, yet to share that secret with humans? Her people would call it betrayal. The rescuer approached then. His arm was bandaged, his coat still torn from the fight. Yet he walked steady, his eyes sharp. He crouched near her, not too close, not too far. For a long moment, he simply watched her child sleep. Then he looked at her. Safe, he said softly, repeating the word he had taught her. The mother nodded once, but her lips pressed tight. She wanted to believe. She wanted to trust, yet fear still whispered nothing is free. Other humans came closer now. One man carried dried meat. Another brought water. They set it before her, their faces calmer than before. The anger she had seen earlier was softer now, replaced with something like respect. The rescuer pointed to the food, then to her. Eat, she shook her head. Why do you keep feeding us? Why do you keep giving? Her voice cracked, though she knew he did not understand her language. Still, he answered, his tone firm. He pressed his hand over his chest. Human? Then he pointed at her. Mother. Finally, he touched the child's shoulder with care. Child, 3 words. 3 truths. The mother's throat tightened. She lowered her eyes, unable to speak. As the night stretched on, humans began to plan. Their voices grew serious, urgent. The mother could not follow their words, but she saw their faces. Some pointed toward the valley, others toward the mountains. They argued, their voices sharp, their gestures strong. Finally, the rescuer raised his voice above them. He spoke with command, his hand pointing firmly toward the mountains. The others fell silent. Slowly, they nodded. The mother's stomach twisted. He was right to point there. The raiders were too many, the valley too open. If the humans stayed, they would be destroyed. But the mountains were dangerous, filled with hidden dangers. Only she knew the secret path. She clenched her fists. If she spoke, if she showed them the way, they might live. But in doing so, she would give humans knowledge her people had guarded for centuries. Her daughter stirred, half awake, whispering, Mother? The mother kissed her forehead. Sleep, little star. But sleep would not come for her. She rose quietly, stepping into the cold edge of the firelight. Her eyes locked on the mountains once more. The rescuer followed. His steps crunched softly in the snow behind her. She turned to face him, her breath rising in white clouds. You don't understand me, she whispered, her voice breaking. But if I say nothing, you will die, and if I say everything, my people will curse my name. He tilted his head, his eyes searching hers. Slowly, he placed his hand on his chest again. Safe. Tears burned her eyes. She shook her head. I don't know if you are safe. But then her daughter's small voice came again, sleepy but clear. Mother, trust them. The mother froze. She turned to see the girl sitting up, the blanket still wrapped around her, her eyes shining in the firelight. Trust. The word echoed inside her. She turned back to the rescuer. Her lips trembled, but at last she pointed toward the mountains. She drew a line in the air with her hand, showing a curve, then tapped her chest. Path. I know the path. The rescuer's eyes lit with understanding. His mouth curled into the smallest smile. He nodded once, firm, and in that moment, without words, a promise was made. The mother would guide them. The humans would protect her. The snow fell softly, covering the wounds of the earth. But deep in the storm, another fire was rising. Far away, raiders gathered again, this time not a small band, but an army. Torches lit the night like burning stars. Their roars carried through the valley, shaking the mountains themselves. The mother shivered, clutching her daughter close. She had given her secret to humans. She had given them her trust, and now the fate of them all would depend on whether humans were truly angels. Or something even greater. The night sky burned with torches. From the valley below, hundreds of raiders advanced, their cries echoing like thunder, their weapons flashing in the firelight. The ground trembled beneath their march. The alien mother stood at the edge of the camp, her daughter clutched close. Fear crushed her chest. She had seen raids before, but never so many. An army had come for her. The humans moved quickly now. Tents were packed, weapons sharpened, supplies divided. Their faces were pale, their bodies still wounded from the last fight, but none showed fear. They worked together, steady, silent. The rescuer stood at the center, giving orders. His voice was calm, strong, his hand gestures sharp. The humans obeyed without question. Then his eyes found hers. He nodded once. The meaning was clear. It is time. Show us the path. The mother swallowed hard. She pointed to the mountains, to the hidden pass only she knew. Her hand traced the way through the cliffs, the narrow trail that wound above the valley. The humans listened, their eyes fixed on her. For the first time, she did not see suspicion in their faces. She saw trust. Her daughter tugged her sleeve. Mother, will we be safe? The mother pressed her forehead to the child's. I don't know, little star. But we must try. The humans began their journey. Through the snow, through the darkness, they climbed toward the mountains. The mother led them, the rescuer close behind. Every step was heavy, every breath sharp, but the thought of the raiders below pushed them forward. Behind them, the valley roared with war cries. The raiders had found the empty camp. Soon they would follow. The path narrowed into a thin trail above a steep drop. One wrong step meant death. Snow fell thick, covering their tracks but also hiding the danger below. The mother guided carefully, whispering warnings, her daughter clutching her neck. At last they reached a hidden ridge. From there, the humans could see the valley stretching below like a sea of fire. Raiders filled it, their torches blazing, their numbers endless. The rescuer stood beside her, staring at the enemy. His jaw was tight, his face hard, but his eyes burned with determination. The mother whispered, "We cannot fight them. There are too many." He looked at her, then at the humans behind him. Slowly he shook his head. Not fight, escape. But escape would not be easy. The raiders were already climbing the lower cliffs, their cries growing louder. The humans formed a line, covering the rear as others helped the wounded across the ridge. The mother moved quickly, guiding them through the narrow pass. Her daughter looked back once and gasped, "Mother, they're coming!" Indeed, the raiders were close now, climbing like shadows with blades in hand. The rescuer turned to his people, shouting commands. They prepared rifles and bows, firing down into the horde. Sparks of light, screams of pain. But for every raider that fell, more climbed. The mother's heart pounded. They would never hold. Not against so many. Then she saw him. The rescuer stepped forward, planting himself at the narrowest part of the trail, the choke point. His knife in one hand, a rifle in the other. His back to his people, his face to the enemy. The mother's blood froze. No, he cannot, but she understood. He was not protecting himself. He was buying time. The raiders swarmed upward. The rescuer fought like a wall of iron. His rifle cracked, his blade cut, his boots kicked bodies into the abyss below. Blood spilled, screams echoed, but he did not move back. The humans shouted at him to retreat, but he did not. His eyes stayed on the mother, on the child. The mother felt her heart tear apart. She had offered her daughter for one blanket. Just one night, and instead this human gave his blood, his strength, his very life. Her daughter cried out, "Mother, he's going to die." The mother turned, shouting to the others, her voice raw. "Move, follow me, now." With desperate speed, she led them through the last turn of the pass. Snow blinded them, rocks cut their feet, but they kept moving. Behind them, the rescuers' battle cry echoed against the cliffs. At last, they reached a hidden cave. The humans stumbled inside, collapsing in exhaustion. The mother set her daughter down, rushing to the entrance, her eyes searching the storm. And then, he appeared. The rescuer stumbled through the snow, blood on his coat, his steps weak but unbroken. He had survived. He had held the line. The mother gasped, tears flooding her eyes. She ran forward, catching him as he fell to his knees. Her hands pressed against his wounds, her voice shaking. "Why? Why do you keep saving us?" He lifted his head, his lips pale, his voice low. "Human, protect." Her tears fell onto his hands. She could not speak. She could only hold him. The child came forward, wrapping her small arms around the rescuer's neck. She whispered, "Father." The word hung in the air, warm against the cold night. The mother's chest broke open with emotion. She had offered her daughter for one blanket, for one night of survival. But this human had given them something far greater. Not just fire. Not just food. Not just safety. He had given them a future. The storm outside raged on, but in the cave, warmth spread from the fire and from their bond. The mother looked at her daughter, then at the human, and whispered, "Sometimes, just one night with a human can change the destiny of a world."